Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, proudly supported by Valvoline and Sparesbox. Don't forget BCW5 on checkout. This week, we've got the Fox in the shop. We're doing final preparations for Drag Week 2022. Basically, this thing's had a bit of a makeover since Drag Challenge weekend. It's been down at MPW in Victoria. We've had a heap of stuff done in the back end, which unfortunately some of it didn't work out because we contracted unnamed diff shop to build a diff in 3 weeks, and 9 weeks later we got the original diff back untouched. So that actually ruined a lot of what was going to happen in the back end. We were planning to actually narrow the diff somewhat and have a 15x10 under the guard rather than around of it. So the plan was to sit the car a lot lower and yeah, get the wheels under it. Unfortunately, that plan hasn't come off, but a lot of other things have happened behind the scenes. It's got a completely new chrome moly cage that Adam designed on CAD. That's really well done. It's super tight to the pillars. It's a much better cage than the original cage that was in the car. Interestingly, the cage that was in the car doesn't actually comply with Australian rules with ANDRA or IHRA. So the car was provisionally teched based on that cage being redone. So now it's fully certified and compliant with all of the sanctioning bodies in Australia. It will also be compliant in America because it's a very similar format to the Cresta cage, which is fully compliant. But we've also had the car around the corner at RC Fabric. He's done a pretty good job on the cooling system for us. So we've gone to a full aluminium radiator now for a few reasons, mainly because we can actually weld it and repair it. But also because the core's thicker, so we've got more coolant volume. With the Hypertune hyper clamps, they allow plenty of movement and expansion for the cooling system when it's heating up and cooling down. It just makes it a lot safer. We've now completely eliminated any rubber in this cooling system. Touch wood, we've never had a major issue at the track, but if you were to say split a cylinder head or split a bore or something like that, where all of a sudden you've got 50 plus PSI of pressure in the cooling system, that can obviously lead to rubber componentry to fail pretty eventfully, and then it can lead to major accidents like the car into the wall, into another car, a combination of both, and they're all things we're trying to avoid. So we're very much trying to make this thing safer, but also we've added another header tank and an overflow combo almost identical to the Cresta. So we've now added about another 6 litres of coolant volume onto that sort of passenger side strut tower. The thing's fully sealed, fully welded, and now we've obviously got a much larger cooling system overflow tank. So same thing in the event of a split bore or a head failure or something like that, we can effectively catch a lot more of the cooling system volume in that tank and not have an issue. So yeah, a lot of things have been going on in the background, and today we're actually going to be tackling a lot of electrical stuff. I'm okay at electrical, but we're definitely going to need a bit of help. So Maddie's going to be doing a lot of the Haltech stuff for us remotely. So basically today we've got a bit of a list, good old road-killed style. So yeah, we've actually added a new shifter to both this car and the Cresta. We've got CO2 shifting now as well. So going to do that. We've got a bump button which needs to be added because Drag Week's changed the rules this year, so that if you're staging, you've only got a second to leave before. So basically anything longer than a second in your staging time after the lights come down on the tree, that time is now actually added to your time. So yeah, it may be the difference between second, third or fourth place just based on that bump in time. So yeah, we've got to be pretty mindful of that. And any of you guys who just watched our last Cresta video at the track would have seen I was practicing on the light, bumping in rather than just sitting there trying to get the car up on boost. So yeah, we're basically getting on the first light on the tree and then getting on the trans brake, building some boost and then bumping in. So we're already at full boost by the time the trees come down, so we can leave on the light. I've never been the best at reaction times, but if you're basically anything under a second, they're not going to count. Anything over a second, obviously that's going to be added to your time, which on some turbo cars can be 4 or 5 seconds after you've kind of staged the tree that you're coming on boost. So that could be 3, 4, 5 seconds to each pass. So yeah, definitely not something we're trying to add to our times because going fast is the aim of the game. So, and the other thing is too, if you're sitting there every single time there's an extra 5 seconds to everyone's pass, that might be the difference between every single car getting another pass throughout the whole day. So they're actually making the event a lot more efficient that way as well. We're also going to be adding a gear position sensor to the transmission today, similar to the way we did on the Cresta as well. I don't actually have the sensor here, so we're just going to be running the wiring down to the box, and then I'll just fit that at a later date. But yeah, basically we want to get all of our electrical system finished today. And the other thing we're going to be doing is also having our exhaust diverter valve is no longer going to be manually switched, it'll actually be ECU controlled. So Maddie will work out some thresholds and make a generic table, and that'll set us up, because we're going to actually be changing this car today from ESP software to NSP as well. And in doing that, we're also going to be adding one of the Haltech 5x3 keypads as well. So it'll give us fan override, transmission fan override, fuel pump override, as well as our boost settings, which are currently on a rotary trim module, because that rotary trim module, we need to get back that input into the ECU to enable the gear position sensor to be input. The other thing we found out interestingly too, someone's had a bit of a play around with this car, not us, and they decided for whatever reason to put VCT back in it. It didn't really work, but in order to get the second cam position sensor back into the ECU, they've actually removed the flex sensor from the ECU. We didn't know that. We did drag challenge completely unaware that the flex field wasn't actually working properly. I guess that's testament to how well the long and short term fuel trims work on the Haltech ECU, because we didn't really actually notice anything was going on. So yeah, we're actually going to check that circuit, re-pin that back into the ECU today, and yeah, test it all out, make sure it's all working properly, because I do really want to have flex fuel working properly so that we're not chasing long and short term fuel trims on the road. But yeah, that's a lot of talking for an episode, so let's dive in and start doing some wiring. So that'll end up being the gear position sensor. We'll plug into that. And then all of this now doesn't exist, because that was the old race pack buttons, and we've gone to an IC7. That was our rotary trim for boost, I think. And then that was our exhaust changey dewy. So this is all gone now, and we'll put our keypad in this area. So we have a keypad instead. This is how Benny lost the hand. So this is the start of the interior upgrade. This is the Haltech 5x3 keypad. We're using this primarily for things like probably launch RPM changes, boost control changes. This car doesn't have torque management, so we're not going to use torque management. But we've also got things that we can enable, like fuel pump override, trans cooler fan override, also radiator fan override. The reason we want to have the fuel pump override is actually so we can pump the tank out of the fuel that's in it. It'll make it heaps easier than trying to bridge wires and stuff like that we used to do. Also, this Deutsch connector here is actually going to be the 2-pin connector for the bump button on the steering wheel. So I just want it to be easily accessible and easily removable, so we can actually unplug it for street duties, because even though we've got those spiral cables, in my experience, they can actually bind up around the column and tear the wires out of the back of the button. It's happened to me twice. I've repaired my one twice. So typically on the street portion of the drive, I'll just wind the cable around the back of the wheel and tuck it up. Then we can easily connect it and disconnect it so that we're not damaging anything. I do actually have a spare button this year for drag week as well because, like I said, we have broken it a few times in the past. So we'll jam this in. This is the wiring for the keypad, so it's literally just a CAN plug. We do have one more port left in our CAN hub as well, so we can plug that straight in. This is basically the wiring for the bump button, and I'm also actually pulling a 12 volt power from the back of this panel, or where this used to be, because we've already got 12 volt source there. I'm going to run that down basically to the area of the ECU where we're going to have 2 MAC valves, one for the exhaust control and the other one for the CO2 control. There's also a third thing I think that I need power down there for, actually the vac pump for the exhaust control as well. So it's all going to be powered from this wire, which is already fused from the factory fuse box. It's a pretty high current circuit. It's about a 25 amp fuse on it, so we can pull a fair bit of current through it. So yeah, it should be pretty sweet. So I'm going to run that down, and obviously that's also our bump input into the ECU. I've also just got to make the little sub harness for our exhaust flap and our CO2 shifter. So I'll wire all those in, and they're going to pull power from this as well, like I already mentioned. So we'll get this switch panel in now and keep on going. So this is all the wiring that we've run across from the driver's side to the passenger side. This is the 2 Deutsch connectors that go to our MAC valve and our little air compressor to drive the exhaust cutout. That's going to be our CO2 shift solenoid, and then these are the pins that go to the ECU. So that's our bump that we've run across from the Deutsch connector in the dash panel, and these are our 2 MAC solenoid ECU switch pins. And this is just our 12 volt power supply, which I've run across from under the dash. So I've just got to terminate that. We're going to heat shrink it and then just tape up. So yeah, it'll be pretty neat once it's all done. Yeah, so slowly chipping away at it. Wiring is definitely not my favourite thing, but yeah, making fairly good progress at the moment. So we'll keep on going. So I'm about to drill the steering wheel for the bump button, which is this thing here, which, if you're not familiar with the term, basically means that it interrupts the trans brake circuit momentarily, in this case via the ECU. The Haltech actually controls the trans brake in this car and the Cresta as well. But you do need to actually touch this with your hand to get it to bump. The one thing to keep in mind with the bump button is if the vehicle is left or right hand drive, because you don't want to be putting the bump button on the same side of the steering wheel as your shifting hand. So for a left-hand drive car, you really want to put this on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. And for a right-hand drive car, you really want to put it on the right-hand side of the steering wheel. So saves you drilling too many holes in your steering wheel and making it look like Swiss cheese. So keep that in mind when you are going to put a bump button in. Oofed. Ah, oh, stop it. Yahtzee.
have opened up or connected to the ECU, the next thing, of course, is to make sure that we're on the latest software. And then if we go up to tools here in ESP, we actually have a function here where you can update the ECU straight to the new MSP software. Big thing to know when you're all doing firmware updates, of course, we make sure that the coils are unplugged. That's the main thing. We've done that now, so click this through. And then here it will give you USB connection we've got, 12 volt power, NSP installer, and of course NSP is on here. So we're going to run this now. So this is now taking us over to the new NSP software, where it's going to erase everything that's on there and then upload it back in as NSP format. So of course, successfully updated. Sometimes this will come up saying successfully, however, a default map's been loaded in, because sometimes it doesn't come over. That's why we save our files. It does do an automatic save, but of course, just get in the habit of doing it.
Safely save it.
You can already see here like the different stuff. Instead of having 1 or 0, it's got active and inactive.
Yeah,
so that you know. The first thing it'll come up with a heap of reds. The first one you'll always see is vehicle name. So we give them a vehicle name now. So let's go vehicle description. It's Fox Body Mustang, and we can give it a name. Do we have a name for this car? Or?
Same thing, I guess.
What that does is now that creates a folder. It doesn't matter whatever laptop you go, it will always save the logs and the tunes in its own folder.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to go back and find it. Cool thing about NSP is everything's red. You can just click it and it will just tell you. So you go up to sensors. If you search through here, you'll find it. But also if you just scroll down, it's saying that the vehicle speed, that something hasn't come over. And yeah, again, sometimes when you do these things, it just assigns some wires to it that it doesn't need. Of course, you got the reboot button, so just a quick reboot. It's saying that it's connected to launch. It also gives you a description. Just go down to launch control, because I don't think that is correct. And this could have been previously, it had this wire, so when it's pulled over the tune, it might have grabbed it from the background.
Yeah.
Just disconnect that, reconnect, and now it's gone.
So do you want me to put the coils in and try and start it?
So we'll plug in the coils and we'll start up, make sure it's all good.
Right, they're plugged in, so I'll crank it now. Runs.
Perfect. No errors, no nothing. So it's all come over good.
Sick. Awesome. Well, that's us going across to NSP now.
Yep, it's that simple.
Happy days. So, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but tomorrow we'll off camera go across and configure the keypad and set up all the stuff that we've moved across and set up our CO2 shift and our exhaust control as well. So, we'll I think we'll leave it there for today because I've got to go to the dentist.
That's not fun.
That's not fun. But no, thank you very much, Maddie, for helping us again as always and getting this thing continually upgraded and growing and making it better. So it'd be cool to keep progressing with it.
Yeah, no dramas. Yeah, I'm looking forward to adding in all these special features and making it a bit more automated and
yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. Awesome, thanks, man. Well, another day on the coalface. Got the Mustang somewhat more completed, but not quite as far as we were hoping. Unfortunately, I've actually got to go to the dentist today, so normally we'd keep rolling into the night, but yeah, I've got to go and get my face rearranged, so can't wait for that. Yeah, massive thanks as always to Matty from Haltech for his support and help with the car, with all our cars really. Matty goes above and beyond here and at the track. So yeah, without his help, we wouldn't be able to do some of the things that we do with these cars. So yeah, thanks to Matty and thanks to Haltech for their support as well. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.